He did not want to straight say that President Biden won the 2020 election. Why not?
Well, I don't know, but there's this little game. If you followed all the committees, it happens every time we have a nominee in judiciary, where the Democrats try to get a nominee by the president to say that the president actually won the election and President Biden didn't. And they want the nominee to use the magic words that Trump lost the election. And the nominees, understandably, in my opinion, don't want to play that game. I haven't.
But how is it a game? I mean, it's just what happened.
No, it is a game, Casey. If you look at it's a game of words by my Democratic colleagues, and I have not heard one single nominee by the president say that Donald Trump won the election and Joe Biden lost. But the Democrats don't like the words they use, so they play these games. And I do think it is a game. I do not know a single nominee by the president that I personally believe thinks that Joe Biden was not the president.
Sure, but again, I mean, we live in a democracy where in the past, everyone called the winner to concede and say, congratulations on your win. It was a tough loss for me. What does it say about where we are that, you think that this is a game of words? I mean, when did this get so hard?
Well, look, I'm biased, but I think the Democrats have made it hard. I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that Joe Biden was the president. And I haven't heard a single nominee by President Trump say Donald Trump won the election, Joe Biden didn't. But the Democrats want them to use the magic words so they can then go spin the press, most of which will suck it up like a Hoover Deluxe, that this guy called Donald Trump a liar and he's Donald Trump's nominee. That it is a game that's being played. I've been in dozens of hearings where the Democrats did that. And I don't think the American people have any doubt about who the last president was. It was Joe Biden.
Is that not more about President Trump and the way he would react to a nominee saying this than it is about the Democrats?
No, I think President Trump thinks he won the election, and I think he was cheated, and he's entitled to have that belief, and the American people are entitled to draw their own conclusions about the truth or legitimacy of what he says.
What's up, family? So we got another one for you today, and this one right here is beautiful. You already know what it is. We're breaking down the CNN panel where Charles Blow, former New York Times columnist, tried to set a trap for a Republican panelist with that tired 2020 election gotcha question. And it blew up right in his face, and I mean exploded. And we're going to look at what happened, break down both sides, talk about why this game keeps getting played, and pull some life wisdom out of it. So let's get into it. Here's what happened. There's a CNN panel discussing the confirmation hearings for Trump's nominees, right? Jay Clayton, Todd Blanche, and the conversation is going fine until Charles Blow decides he wants to press a conservative panelist on a very specific question. Not about qualifications, not about experience, not about policy. No, he wants to know if she believes Joe Biden won the 2020 election. Now, watch how she handles it. Because she says, and I'm paraphrasing here, he followed the process, he got the most electoral votes, he was declared the winner. That's the factual answer. That's exactly what happened. Joe Biden was declared the winner. He received the most electoral votes. He was sworn in as president. That is not a lie. That is not an invasion. That is a statement of what actually happened. But that's not good enough for Charles Blow, right? That wasn't good enough for him. He keeps pushing. He keeps pressing, and you can see what's happening here. He's not looking for a fact. He's looking for her to say the magic words. As you guys will see, my friend here on the screen said, which is why I played this first clip of Senator John Kennedy, who I admire dearly because he has some humor while also speaking the truth in his words, and a phenomenal politician, if you ask me. Just in my opinion. The way he articulates himself in a humorous way, but also making his point across pretty straightforward. But the games, right? In the magic words, as Senator John Kennedy said on the screen right here from Louisiana, Republican. He wants her to say, Joe Biden won fair and square. That's what Charles Blow wants this conservative panelist on the CNN panel that we're about to see wants to double down on and want her to say, so he can take that clip and run with it. And when he does or she doesn't give him what he wants, he gets frustrated, Charles Blow, and he starts talking about how he's been in journalism since before she was born, and he calls her a child. He tells her to stay in her lane, and the whole thing looks desperate. It looks like someone who walked into a room expecting the easy win and walked out empty-handed. So I want you guys to check this
that
out.
office to now be concerned with his 2020 election conspiracies and so on and so forth. This is Clayton answering questions about just a basic question of fact. Listen.
Who won the 2020
I'm not,
election?
this is like, I'm here to talk about my qualifications.
So he won the election.
He followed our process, had the most electoral votes, was declared the winner.
You refuse to answer a simple matter of fact about the 2020 election. Is that right?
No, that's not right.
Then answer the question. Who won the
have
2020 election?
I have answered the question.
Answer it. What is your answer?
I've given you my answer.
What is your answer? You refuse to answer a basic question about who won a presidential election,
No,
but you asked to lead America's intelligence community?
Lydia, that's kind of embarrassing and maybe a little concerning if, intelligence is what he wants to have the job of doing. If he can't just state a fact, how can he do that other job?
I mean, he'd been asked, I think, 3 times at that point, and he did mince words. I would have liked him just to say yes and put an end to the discussion. But there's a lot of theatrics at these kind of hearings. John Ossoff got his soundbite, and Republicans kind of do the same thing. They love to ask, what is a woman? And Ketanji Brown Jackson couldn't answer. A lot of people still can't answer that question. So to me, it's theatrics. I do have to say, it's funny. I feel like we've sat at this table so many times and bashed Pam Bondi and Bill Pulte. And I kind of thought maybe people would be glad to have Jay Clayton and Todd Blanche, people who are eminently qualified for these jobs. And I think at the end of the day, it's a question of, do you want Jay Clayton or do you want Bill Pulte?
I actually think that the two people that were on the Hill today.
Wait, hold on. The two people now, but he couldn't do it.
The two people that were on the Hill today.
I know you're trying to get a social media clip, Charles, but
do you know?
I think Savino is trying to talk. I know you're trying to get your social media clip for the gotcha. I answered your question already, but I'm also not here to answer to you. So
I'm happy that you told me that because I really appreciate. I'm sorry. I really appreciate you lecturing me about what I'm here to do because I'm here because Abby's show invited me here, and I have been in journalism for a very long time. In fact, I came to the New York Times the year that you were born. So I suggest that you choose a lane that is your own and stay in it, and don't lecture me because I won't be lectured by a child.
That's what I just talked about, family. Charles Blow coming at Lithia Monahan, who was the conservative panelist I was talking about, called her a child, right? And wanted her to say the magic words that Joe Biden won fair and square. And Charles Blow here, as you see on the screen, them two having that back and forth altercation that I was talking about and referring to, got some sassiness with it too, man. Like pause, like sassiness. But let's be real for a second. This whole dynamic is something we've seen over and over again. Every single time a Trump nominee goes through a confirmation hearing, the Democrats pull out the same playbook. They ask the same question. Do you believe Joe Biden won the 2020 election? Was the election legitimate? And they ask it not because they care about the answer, but because they want a soundbite. They want the nominee to say the words, Biden won fair and square, so they can run to the press and say, look, this Trump pick admitted the election was legitimate. It's a gotcha, and everybody knows it's a gotcha. Even the host, Casey Hunt, sitting there trying to pretend like it's just a simple question of fact doesn't change the reality of what's happening. Because if it was just a question of fact, then why doesn't the same energy apply to the Democratic nominees? Why weren't these same Democrats demanding that every Biden nominee say the border is a disaster, or inflation is out of control, or the Afghanistan withdrawal was a failure? See, that's the thing. They only demand this level of acknowledgement for things that benefit their political narrative. It's not about facts. It's about winning a clip. So Lithia Monahan was on point at coming at Charles Blow and saying, I understand that you want a clip in regards to the matter. And then he basically tried to little girl her, throwing personal ad hominem attacks, but couldn't substantiate his point because him coming at her that way and calling her a child and calling her out her name and trying to belittle her basically justified that he wanted a clip because he couldn't come back with a stronger stance to actually stick to the topic and substantiate his point, but he had to go as low as calling her a child.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
So I think to what Lydia was saying about these people being qualified, I would disagree that these are qualified individuals. I think what you saw on the Hill were two people that are quite grossly not qualified for the offices that they're seeking and will do the bidding, the point that you're making. They're supposed to serve the American people. The Attorney General is meant to be a check on the administration, on the president, and they're meant to be objective and serving the public. And what you saw today, even when Todd Blanche slipped up and said, I'm the president's lawyer, you're actually not. You're actually the lawyer, the Attorney General for the public. And so I think what was displayed on Capitol Hill today, yes, you're right. There were theatrics, but they weren't wrong. I mean, facts are facts. I mean, who won the election in 2020? Is the sky blue? I mean, that is a very easy question that could have been answered, and yet there was a struggle. So I do think you have unqualified people up there. I do think the Senate ultimately probably rallies around these two individuals.
And I would
passes
say
them out.
that on the Clayton issue, there are people who, our friend Ellie Honig in the last hour made a very compelling case that he is not qualified.
Yeah, but
he has
no
background.
He
he has no background in intelligence.
But I think, look, I agree that the
not.
Attorney General should not curry favor for an individual, but adhere to the Constitution. I think most of us at the table would probably agree with that. But as it pertains to Todd, I think it's hard to say he's not qualified. I mean, the guy was at Southern District of New York, moved up through the ranks. Ellie Honig actually worked with him. The current Attorney General for New York, Alvin Bragg, worked with him as well. So it's okay to disagree. Yeah. I'm going to give you the room for that.
But
you have the right to do that.
But the Cornyn question is the real question here, because Cornyn has offered the same objection to all of them.
Sure.
Merrick, to Bundy, and now to Blanche, which is he's saying, I need to make sure that you can tell me that the DOJ will be independent of the president.
That's a legitimate question.
And he is not there.
And that's why I said, though, Charles,
I do have to make one important point.
Sorry, Your Honor, go ahead.
This is a man who said that his administration and he are at war with the judiciary. That's a terrible thing to have said. Nobody should be at war with the judiciary. There are three co-equal branches of government, as we know. He also has called judges rogue. He has also criticized their opinions in a way that's not appropriate. So, and he and his people have been disrespectful and lied to the court such that there's no longer a presumption of regularity, which means that judges no longer believe DOJ lawyers. 16,000 people have left the DOJ since this man got here because they worked on cases that the president thinks were wrongly brought against him. So they were just summarily fired.
Let me just play another interaction. He was asked about his comments about the January 6th pardons by a senator. And I'm going to play what he said in the hearing today and what he actually said in that appearance that was being questioned about. Listen.
And you've bragged that bringing justice for violent rioters meant that every one of them was either pardoned or had their sentence commuted.
Almost everything the senator just said, and he's protected, he's allowed to lie, but almost everything he just said was absolutely false. I wasn't celebrating it, I was merely stating a fact.
If you look at what happened to the men and women convicted because of January 6th, by 5 p.m. on January 20th, every one of them was either pardoned or had their sentence commuted, okay? So when folks say,
and here's where it gets even better. The conservative panelist on the show, Lithia Monahan, she called it out in real time. She said, I know you're trying to get a social media clip, Charles. And she saw exactly what was happening and she refused to play the game. And that is what triggered his meltdown. That's what had him going off about how long he's been in journalism, how she should respect his experience, because when you come to the table with a gotcha question and somebody calmly, professionally refuses to take the bait, you got nothing left. Your whole plan falls apart. And that's exactly, what happened here? He had nothing. So he resorted to the only thing he had left, which was trying to embarrass her with his credentials, as I mentioned, and his age and his status. But here's the thing. The audience saw it. We all saw it. She stayed calm. She stayed professional. And he looked like someone who just lost control. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture here, family, because this goes way beyond one CNN panel. This is a pattern. The mainstream media and Democrats have decided that the 2020 election is their ace in the hole. It's their trump card. Every time a Republican comes within 10 feet of a microphone, they want to know if they think the election was stolen. And here's the problem with that approach. It's not working. It's not landing. People see it for what it is. When you ask a question and a person answers it factually, he received the most electoral votes. He was declared the winner, quote unquote. And you still keep pushing, you reveal that you're not interested in the answer. You're interested in the performance and you're interested in the gotcha. And that's why this strategy keeps backfiring. The more you push, the more obvious it becomes that you're playing a game and not asking a genuine question. And the American people are not stupid. They see the game, they understand the game, and they're tired of the game. Now, I want to address something that came up in that same panel because it's important. The conservative panelists, Cynthia Monahan, made a really good point about the double standard here because she said Democrats were complaining about Pam Bondi. They were complaining about Tulsi Gabbard. They were complaining about almost every Trump pick. And now you got Jay Clayton and Todd Blanche, people who actually have serious credentials, who worked at the Southern District of New York, who worked with folks like Eli Honing and Alvin Bragg, and they're still complaining. They're still finding problems. They're still saying they're not qualified. And that tells you everything you need to know. It was never about qualifications. It was always about who nominated them. If Trump nominated Mother Teresa, they'll be asking her about whether she repented for feeding the hungry without a government license. They are never going to be satisfied. So the lesson for Trump and for every Republican is simple. Stop trying to pick people who will satisfy the Democrats. Just stop trying to pick people that satisfy the Democrats. That's all. It's never going to work. Pick people who will do the job. Pick people who believe in the Constitution, and pick people who will enforce the law, because the Democrats are going to complain either way. And here's another thing that stood out to me. One of the panelists tried to compare this gotcha about the 2020 election to Republicans asking questions like, what is a woman? Or can men get pregnant? And they tried to make it seem like both sides do the same thing. And I need to address that because it's not the same. When Republicans ask, what is a woman? They're asking about biological reality. They're asking about something that has a clear, objective, scientific answer. When Democrats ask, was the 2020 election legitimate? They're asking about a process that had serious irregularities, that had states changing voting laws without legislative approval, that had ballot harvesting, that had mail-in ballots being counted days after election. That's not the same thing as asking about basic biology. One is a factual question about reality. The other is a political question about an event that millions of Americans have legitimate concerns about. So don't let them fool you into thinking these are the same thing, because they're not. Now, let me tell you what the takeaway is from all of this, family. The takeaway is that you need to learn how to spot the games people are playing. Whether it's in politics, in media, in your workplace, in your relationships, people are going to ask you questions. They are designed to trap you. They're going to ask you questions that are designed to trap you, not to learn from you. And the way you handle that is the way this, Cynthia Monahan, the conservative panelist on the CNN panel, handled it. You answer the question factually. You stay calm. You don't take the bait. And when they try to push you further, you hold your ground. You don't let them drag you into their game, because once you start playing by their rules, you already lost. You have to play by your own rules. You have to stay grounded in facts and reality. And you have to know what you believe and why you believe it. And you have to be willing to say no when somebody tries to force you into a corner. The other lesson here is about knowing when somebody is not acting in good faith. Charles Blow was not on that panel to have a genuine conversation. He was there to get a clip, and he was there to create a viral moment. And when that didn't work, he got angry. He showed his hand and he revealed that his goal was never about truth or facts or conversation. It was about performance. And when you recognize that in people, whether it's in media and politics or in your own life, you can stop being frustrated by them and start seeing them for what they are. You can stop expecting good faith from people who have never operated in good faith, and that frees you up to focus on what actually matters. Now, let me close with some scripture because this connects directly to what we're talking about. Proverbs chapter 26, verses 4 and 5 says, do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own eyes. That sounds like a contradiction, right? Don't answer him, but also answer him. But here's what it means. It means there's a time to not engage with foolishness because engaging makes you look just as foolish. And there's a time to answer the fool in a way that exposes the foolishness so he doesn't think he got away with it. And that's exactly what that conservative panelist, Lydia Monahan, did. She didn't refuse to answer. She answered, but she answered on her terms, and she answered factually. She answered in a way that exposed the game being played, and she didn't play the fool's game. She exposed it, and that's wisdom, family. That's something you can apply in your own life, whether it's a coworker trying to set you up, a family member trying to drag you into an argument, or a news anchor trying to get a soundbite. You have the power to choose how you respond. You don't have to play that game, and you can stay grounded, stay factual, and stay calm. And when you do that, you win. Not because you got the last word, but because you kept your integrity intact. Spread that peace, love, and positivity, family. Let the love supersede the hate. And remember, wisdom is knowing when to speak and knowing when your silence or your steady answer is the most powerful thing you can give. Peace, family.